Please, I'm begging you. Just one more day. I'll have the money by Friday. Marin's voice cracks as she grips the edge of the diner counter, her knuckles white against the faded laminate. The fluorescent lights above flicker, casting harsh shadows across her exhausted face. She hasn't slept properly in weeks, and it shows in the dark circles beneath her hazel eyes, in the way her uniform hangs a little looser on her frame than it did last month. The landlord, a thick-necked man named Bukowski, shakes his head with the kind of practiced indifference that comes from years of evicting desperate people. That's what you said last week, sweetheart. The lock gets changed tomorrow at noon. You got until then to clear out. The diner is nearly empty at this hour, just past 9 on a Tuesday evening in February. Outside, snow falls in thick, wet clumps that cling to the windows, turning the streetlights into blurred halos of yellow. Marin feels the weight of those few remaining customers watching, pretending not to listen while they absolutely are. Small-town life means everyone knows everyone's business, especially when that business involves failing. Bukowski slides off his stool, adjusting his coat with an air of finality. Should have thought about this before you spent all your money on those hospital bills. Can't run a business on charity. The words hit like a slap. Marin's mother had died 3 months ago after a long, expensive battle with cancer. The bills had devoured everything. The tiny inheritance, Marin's savings, even the money she'd set aside for rent. But you can't explain love to a man like Bukowski. You can't explain sitting in a sterile room, holding a hand that grows colder by the day, knowing that every breath costs money you don't have, but paying it anyway, because the alternative is unthinkable. I understand, Marin whispers, though she doesn't. Not really. She doesn't understand how the world can be so casually cruel, how a person can be reduced to numbers on a ledger, to missed payments and broken promises. Bukowski leaves without another word, the bell above the door chiming with offensive cheerfulness as he disappears into the snow. Marin stands frozen for a moment, feeling her carefully constructed composure begin to crumble. She can't break down here, not in front of Shirley, the other waitress, who already looks at her with too much pity. Not in front of the customers who will gossip about it tomorrow over their eggs and toast. She makes it to the bathroom before the first sob breaks free, pressing her palm against her mouth to muffle the sound. The mirror reflects a woman she barely recognizes. 28 years old but looking 40, pretty features drawn tight with exhaustion and fear. Her honey blonde hair, once her pride, hangs in a limp ponytail. Her eyes, which her mother used to say were the color of warm brandy, have lost their light. Where will she go? Her car barely runs. She has maybe $200 in her account. No family left. No close friends who aren't already struggling themselves. The word homeless looms in her mind like a threat, like something that happens to other people in other stories, not to girls who did everything right, who worked hard and loved their mothers and tried their best. When she finally emerges from the bathroom, face splashed with cold water and expression carefully neutral, she finds Shirley waiting with a sympathetic grimace. "Honey, I'm so sorry. I couldn't help but hear—" "It's fine," Marin interrupts, because she can't talk about it, can't accept sympathy right now without falling apart completely. "Really, I'll figure something out." But Shirley's not looking at her anymore. Her gaze has shifted to one of the booths in the back corner, where a small figure sits hunched over the table. Marin follows her line of sight and frowns. A child, a boy, maybe 8 or 9 years old, with dark hair that falls into his eyes, and clothes that look expensive but rumpled, as if he's been traveling. He's alone, which is unusual enough in this small Montana town where everyone knows everyone's kids. But what catches Marin's attention is the way he's staring at the menu, with an intensity that speaks of more than ordinary hunger. "How long has he been here?" Marin asks. Shirley shrugs. "Came in maybe 20 minutes ago, while you were dealing with Bukowski. Hasn't ordered anything, just sits there looking at the pictures of food like they might come to life if he wishes hard enough." Something in Marin's chest tightens. She knows that look, that particular quality of longing mixed with resignation. She wore it herself as a child, during the lean years after her father left, when her mother worked 3 jobs, and they sometimes had to choose between heating and eating. "Did you ask if he wants something?" "Tried. He just shook his head, said he was waiting for someone." Shirley lowers her voice. "But I've got a feeling no one's coming. You know how you can just tell sometimes?" Marin does know, and despite everything, Despite the impending eviction, the empty bank account, the exhaustion that feels like it's seeped into her very bones, she finds herself walking toward the boy's booth. He looks up as she approaches, and Marin catches her breath. His eyes are the most unusual color she's ever seen, a pale silver blue that almost seems to glow in the diner's harsh lighting. Beautiful, but also deeply unsettling, like looking into the eyes of something ancient and wild, wearing the face of a child. "Hi there," Marin says softly, sliding into the seat across from him. "I'm Marin. What's your name?" The boy hesitates, studying her with an unchildlike wariness. Finally, he speaks, his voice quiet but clear. "Nikolai." Not Nick or Nikki, but Nikolai. The formal name sounds almost ceremonial in his careful pronunciation. "That's a beautiful name," Marin says. "Russian?" A small nod. Nikolai's gaze drops back to the menu, his thin fingers tracing the laminated edge. This close, Marin can see the fine tremor in his hands, the pallor of his skin. When was the last time this child ate? "Are you hungry, Nikolai?" Another pause, longer this time. When he finally looks at her again, those strange pale eyes are bright with something that might be tears. "I don't have any money." The admission costs him something. Marin can see it in the way his jaw tightens, the proud set of his shoulders despite his obvious hunger. This is a child who's not used to being without resources, she realizes. Something has gone very wrong in his world. "That's okay," Marin says, making a decision that's probably foolish given her own circumstances, but feeling absolutely right despite that. "I'm about to take my break anyway. I was going to order something for myself. There's no point in eating alone, is there? Why don't you join me?" Nikolai stares at her for a long moment, and Marin has the strangest feeling that he's seeing far more than a 9-year-old should be able to see, that he's reading her exhaustion, her fear, her desperation, and weighing whether she's safe. "You're sad," he says finally. It's not a question. The observation catches Marin off guard. She forces a smile that probably doesn't reach her eyes. "Just a long day, sweetheart. Nothing for you to worry about. Now, what sounds good? The pancakes are pretty great here, even at dinner time. Or maybe a burger? You look like a burger kind of kid." For the first time, a tiny smile ghosts across Nikolai's face. "Burger, please, with fries." "Excellent choice." Marin starts to slide out of the booth, but Nikolai's hand shoots out, catching her wrist. His grip is surprisingly strong and cold. So cold it almost burns. She looks down at him in surprise. "Thank you," he says, and there's something in his voice that sounds less like a child thanking someone for a meal, and more like royalty, acknowledging a great service. "You have a kind heart. That's rare." Before Marin can respond, he releases her wrist and tucks his hands back under the table. That brief moment of strangeness passing so quickly, she almost wonders if she imagined it. In the kitchen, Marin puts in Nikolai's order and stares at the tickets hanging on the line. She should order something for herself, too, to maintain the fiction that they're sharing a meal. But the truth is, she was planning to work through her break without eating, saving the $8 that her employee meal would cost. $8 might not sound like much, but when you're counting change for gas money, every dollar matters. Shirley appears at her elbow, refilling the coffee pot. "You feeding that kid?" "He's hungry." "And you're broke." Shirley's voice is gentle, but firm. "Marin, honey, you can't save everyone." "I'm not trying to save everyone. Just one kid. Just tonight." But even as she says it, Marin feels the futility of the gesture. She can give this boy one meal, but then what? Tomorrow she'll be packing what little she owns into her dying car with nowhere to go, and Nikolai, wherever he came from, whatever brought him here, will still be facing whatever problems made him hungry and alone in a small-town diner. Still, when the burger comes up, perfectly cooked with a mountain of crispy fries, Marin feels a small spark of satisfaction carrying it to Nikolai's booth. His eyes widen when she sets the plate in front of him, and for a moment he just stares at it like it might disappear if he blinks. "Go ahead," Marin encourages. "Eat before it gets cold." He doesn't need to be told twice. The first bite he takes is almost comically large, and despite everything, Marin finds herself smiling. There's something deeply satisfying about feeding a hungry child, something that touches a maternal instinct she didn't fully know she possessed. But as she watches him eat, that smile fades, because Nikolai doesn't eat like a normal hungry child, all messy enthusiasm and lack of manners. He eats with a kind of desperate efficiency, like someone who knows what real starvation feels like, who can't trust that the food won't be taken away. Every few bites, his eyes flick to the door, watching, waiting. "Nikolai," Marin says gently, "is someone coming to pick you up? Your parents?" He freezes mid-bite, the burger halfway to his mouth. When he sets it down, his expression has shuddered, that brief moment of childlike enjoyment replaced by wariness. "My father will come," he says. "Eventually." "Does he know where you are?" Silence. "Sweetheart, I'm not trying to get you in trouble. I'm just worried. It's late, it's snowing, and you're here alone. Do you have a phone? Should we call someone?" "No." The word comes out sharp, almost panicked. "No, please don't call anyone. Father said—" He stops, swallows hard. "He said I had to wait, that he'd find me when it was safe." Every instinct Marin has is screaming that something's wrong here, but she doesn't know what to do about it. Call the police? Child services? This child is clearly from money, given his clothes and that accent that speaks of expensive schools, but he's also clearly in some kind of trouble. Before she can decide, the bell over the diner's door chimes. The man who enters brings the winter night in with him, not just the cold and the scent of snow, but something else, something that makes the air in the diner suddenly feel charged, electric. He's tall, well over 6 feet, with broad shoulders emphasized by the long black coat he wears. Dark hair, slightly damp from the snow, falls carelessly around a face that could have been carved from marble by an artist obsessed with masculine beauty. High cheekbones, a strong jaw, a mouth that manages to be both sensual and stern. But it's his eyes that pin Marin in place when his gaze sweeps the diner and lands on her booth. Dark eyes, so dark they're almost black, with an intensity that makes her feel simultaneously exposed and protected, seen in a way she's never been seen before. And in those eyes, for just a heartbeat, she swears she sees something red flash in their depths. Like embers, like burning coals, like something not quite human. "Father?" Nikolai's voice breaks the spell, high and relieved and purely childlike. The boy scrambles out of the booth with a speed that nearly knocks his plate over, running across the diner to throw himself at the man. The transformation in the stranger's face is subtle, but profound. That stern, almost cruel beauty softens as he drops to one knee, catching Nikolai and pulling him into an embrace that speaks of genuine fear conquered, of terrible scenarios imagined and now dispelled. His eyes close briefly, and Marin sees his lips move in what might be a prayer or a curse in a language she doesn't recognize. "Nikolai Dmitrievich," the man says, his voice deep and accented. Russian, like his son, but richer, more pronounced. "Do you have any idea what you put me through?" "I'm sorry, Papa. I couldn't stay in the car anymore, and I saw the lights, and I was so hungry." "Shh, it's all right. You're safe now. That's all that matters." The man pulls back, holding Nikolai at arm's length to study him with an intensity that makes the casual observer feel intrusive. "You're not hurt?" "No, Papa. And look." Nikolai turns, pointing at Marin, who's still sitting in the booth, feeling like she's watching a scene from someone else's life. "That lady bought me dinner. She was so nice, even though—" He cuts himself off, but his father's eyes narrow slightly, that protective instinct sharpening into something more dangerous. When his gaze shifts to Marin again, she feels the weight of it like a physical touch. He stands, keeping one hand on Nikolai's shoulder, and approaches the booth with the kind of predatory grace that makes Marin's hindbrain scream warnings her conscious mind doesn't fully understand. Every step is deliberate, controlled, like a big cat stalking prey. Except she doesn't feel like prey exactly. More like something precious and fragile that he's not sure whether to protect or destroy. "You fed my son." It's not a question, and his tone gives nothing away. Marin swallows, suddenly aware of how inadequate she must look to this man, this wealthy, powerful man, because he absolutely radiates both wealth and power in a way that has nothing to do with his expensive clothes. She's exhausted, rumpled, her uniform stained with coffee and smelling like fryer grease. A nobody. Less than nobody. Someone who just had everything she owns dissolved in a puddle of unpaid rent and medical debt. He was hungry, she says, lifting her chin despite her embarrassment. No child should be hungry. Something flickers across the man's face. Surprise, maybe, or reassessment. He slides into the booth across from her, moving with liquid ease, and suddenly the space feels impossibly small. Nikolai follows, tucking himself against his father's side, with the relieved exhaustion of a child who's finally safe and knows it. I am Alexander Morozov, the man says, and the name carries weight, like he expects her to recognize it. When she doesn't react, something that might be amusement touches his mouth. And you are? Marin Ashford. Marin Ashford, he repeats, and the way he says her name, with that accent wrapping around the syllables, makes it sound like something beautiful and rare. My son says you were kind to him, that you bought him dinner despite... His gaze flicks to her uniform, to her tired face, seeing too much. Despite having troubles of your own. Heat floods Marin's cheeks. It was just a burger. No. Alexander's voice is firm, final. It was compassion when you had every reason to conserve your resources. It was humanity when you had every excuse to look away. Do not diminish what you've done. The intensity of his focus is overwhelming. Marin finds she can't quite meet those dark eyes, can't quite process the way he's looking at her, like she's a puzzle he's determined to solve, like she matters in a way she hasn't mattered to anyone in a very long time. Really, it's fine. I'm just glad Nikolai's safe. I was getting worried about him sitting here alone. As you should have been. Alexander's hand tightens on his son's shoulder. Nikolai was told to stay in the car while I dealt with a business matter. He decided to exercise his independence at the worst possible time. The last part is directed at the boy, who has the grace to look sheepish. I was hungry, Papa, and you'd been gone for hours. 2 hours, which I've told you can feel very different to us than to... Alexander stops abruptly, something guarded entering his expression. Than to children. Your metabolism requires frequent meals. I should have left you with supplies. There's something odd about the phrasing, something clinical and carefully chosen, but before Marin can puzzle over it, Shirley appears at the booth with a coffee pot and her best customer service smile. Can I get you anything, sir? She asks, and Marin hears the flutter in her voice, the way every woman sounds when confronted with a man like Alexander Morozov. Coffee, black, and bring me your check. I'll be settling all of Miss Ashford's charges tonight, as well as a meal for myself. Oh, that's not necessary, Marin starts, but Alexander cuts her off with a look that's both gentle and absolutely unyielding. It is necessary. You fed my son when he was in need. The debt must be acknowledged. More than that. He pauses, and something shifts in his expression, something calculating and intent. Miss Ashford, Nikolai tells me you were upset when he first arrived. He says you have a kind heart, but that you carry a great sadness. I wonder if you would allow me to know why. Papa sees things, Nikolai offers sleepily, his head drooping against his father's arm. He always knows when people are sad, or scared, or lying. Nikolai, Alexander murmurs, a note of warning in his voice. But the boy is already half asleep, exhausted from whatever ordeal brought him here, the warm food in his belly, and the safety of his father's presence, finally allowing him to rest. Marin looks at them, this strange, intense man and his unusual child, and feels the careful walls she's built around her fear and desperation begin to crack. Maybe it's exhaustion. Maybe it's the way Alexander looks at her, like her answer actually matters to him. Maybe it's just the fact that tomorrow she'll be homeless, and tonight she has nothing left to lose. I'm being evicted, she says quietly. Tomorrow at noon. I spent everything I had on my mother's medical bills. She died 3 months ago, and I couldn't keep up with rent. My landlord was here earlier. That's what Nikolai saw. She expects pity. She gets something else entirely. A flash of dark fury that makes Alexander's refined features suddenly fierce, almost inhuman in their intensity. You are alone? No family? No one? And this job? He gestures at the diner, his tone suggesting he's already assessed its inadequacy. Barely enough to cover rent and food. Definitely not enough to cover first and last month's rent at a new place, even if I could find a landlord willing to rent to someone who's being evicted. I see. Alexander is quiet for a moment, his long fingers drumming once against the table in what might be agitation. Then, with the air of a man making a momentous decision, I have a proposition for you, Marin Ashford. Something in his tone makes her pulse quicken. What kind of proposition? I am a widower, as you may have surmised. Nikolai's mother died when he was very young. For the past several years, I have employed a series of governesses and caretakers, none satisfactory. My son is challenging. He requires someone with genuine warmth, real kindness, someone who will see him as a child first, rather than an obligation or a paycheck. Alexander's dark eyes pin her in place. Someone like you. Marin's breath catches. You want me to be Nikolai's nanny? More than that, a proper governess. Someone who will travel with us, stay with us, become part of our household. I can offer you a salary that would be, I think, quite generous by any standard. Room and board, of course, travel expenses. And most importantly, his voice drops, becoming something almost hypnotic in its intensity. Safety, security, a place to belong. It's too much, too good. The kind of offer that doesn't exist in real life, that comes with hidden strings and dark prices. You don't know anything about me, Marin says. I could be anyone. Why would you trust me with your son? Because you fed him when you could barely feed yourself. Because you sat with him when you had every reason to focus on your own troubles. Because my son, who trusts almost no one, trusted you immediately. Alexander leans forward slightly, and Marin catches a scent like winter and wood smoke, like pine forests and cold mountain air. And because I am an excellent judge of character, Miss Ashford, I know integrity when I see it, and I know desperation, not the kind that makes people dangerous, but the kind that makes them willing to fight for something better. This is insane, Marin whispers. People don't just offer jobs like this to strangers in diners. I am not most people. It's said simply, with a certainty that brooks no argument. I'm offering you a lifeline, Miss Ashford. The question is whether you're brave enough to take it. Marin looks at Nikolai, sleeping peacefully against his father's side, looks at Alexander, at those dark, intense eyes that seem to see straight through her, thinks about tomorrow, about packing her things into her car with nowhere to go, about the cold Montana winter and the slow, grinding horror of homelessness. She thinks about her mother, who always said that sometimes angels come in unexpected forms, that grace arrives precisely when we need it most, even if we don't recognize it at the time. I'll need references, she says, which is absurd given that she's the one being offered a job, but Alexander smiles, really smiles for the first time, and the expression transforms his face from intimidating to devastating. Of course, I'll provide you with a contract, references, anything you need to feel secure in this arrangement. But Marin, he reaches across the table, and his hand covers hers where it rests on the worn laminate. His skin is cool, that same almost burning cold as Nikolai's touch, but instead of pulling away, Marin finds herself leaning into it, into him. Say yes. Say you'll come with us. Trust me when I say that this meeting was not an accident. Some things are fated, some debts demand repayment, and some people are meant to find each other. Later, Marin will think that she should have questioned that strange phrasing, should have demanded more information, more assurance. But in the moment, exhausted and desperate and strangely drawn to this intense, unusual man, she finds herself nodding. Yes, she whispers. Yes, I'll come with you. Something flashes in Alexander's eyes. Triumph, relief, something darker and more possessive that she doesn't have a name for. His hand tightens on hers for just a moment before he releases her, already reaching for his phone with the efficiency of a man used to making things happen. Good, very good. We'll arrange for your belongings to be collected tonight. You won't be returning to your apartment. There's no need. I have a property nearby where we're staying temporarily. You'll come with us now, get settled, and tomorrow we'll handle all the legal necessities. The contract, The paperwork, all of it. It's moving too fast, way too fast, but Marin feels like she's been caught in a current, and fighting it would take more strength than she has left. Shirley brings the check and the coffee, her eyes wide as she takes in the sight of Alexander, clearly doing rapid calculations about what this means. Alexander pulls out a wallet, black leather, expensive, and lays down several bills without even glancing at the total. When Shirley tries to make change, he waves her off. "Keep it," he says, and from the way Shirley's eyes nearly pop out of her head, Marin guesses the tip is substantial. Then Alexander is standing, lifting Nikolai with an ease that speaks of considerable strength, despite his lean build. The boy stirs slightly, murmuring something in Russian, and his father responds in the same language, his voice tender in a way that makes Marin's chest ache. "Come," Alexander says to her. "Let's get you out of this place. You have a new life waiting." The snow has intensified by the time they leave the diner, fat flakes falling so thickly that Marin can barely see across the parking lot. But Alexander moves through it with the certainty of a man who's never lost his way, even in a blizzard. He carries Nikolai to a car that makes Marin's beat-up sedan look like a toy, something sleek and black and expensive, the kind of vehicle she's only seen in movies. A driver emerges from the front seat, a tall man with pale blonde hair and eyes that catch the parking lot lights with an amber gleam. He takes one look at Marin, and something flickers across his face. Surprise, wariness, and then a quick, assessing calculation. "Alexei," Alexander says, "this is Miss Marin Ashford. She'll be returning to the house with us. Please ensure her belongings are collected from—" He glances at Marin. "432, Oak Street, apartment 3B, she provides, feeling surreal, like she's watching someone else's life unfold. "See to it," Alexander instructs. "Have Constantine and Dima handle it. Everything is to be packed carefully and brought to the house by morning. Of course, you're—" The driver catches himself. "Of course, sir." Alexander opens the back door of the car, settling Nikolai inside before turning to Marin and offering his hand to help her in. His touch is firm, cool, and she catches that scent again, pine and winter, and something else, something almost spicy, like cinnamon and cloves. The interior of the car is exactly as luxurious as she expected. Leather seats, wood paneling, space enough that even with Alexander beside her and Nikolai stretched across his lap, she doesn't feel cramped. As Alexei pulls out of the parking lot, Marin watches the diner disappear into the snow and darkness and feels like she's leaving more than just a building behind. "You're very quiet," Alexander observes. He's arranged Nikolai so the boy's head rests in his lap, one hand absently stroking his son's dark hair in a gesture so paternal, it makes Marin's throat tight. "I'm trying to process that my entire life just changed in the space of an hour." "Feeling regret?" Marin considers this, searching her emotions for the panic and doubt that should be there. Instead, she finds a strange, settled calm. "No, feeling like maybe I'm dreaming." "Not a dream. Though I confess my life must seem dreamlike to those not accustomed to it." Alexander's lips quirk in something that's not quite a smile. "I should tell you something about my family, Marin. We are unusual. Wealthy, yes, but more than that. We have particular customs, particular ways of living that may seem strange to you at first. I ask that you keep an open mind, that you trust me when I say that everything I do is to protect those under my care." A thread of unease winds through Marin's calm. That's vague enough to be concerning. And yet you don't seem very concerned. He's right, and she doesn't know why. By all logic, she should be terrified, climbing into a stranger's car, agreeing to move into his house, trusting a man she met an hour ago with her safety and future. But there's something about Alexander that bypasses logic, that speaks to some deeper instinct. Despite his intensity, despite the subtle wrongness she can't quite name, she feels safe with him. Protected. "My mother used to say I had good instincts about people," Marin says finally, "that I could sense when someone meant harm. You don't. Mean harm, I mean. You're dangerous, I can feel that. But not to me. How perceptive you are." Alexander's voice has gone soft, almost wondering. "Nikolai said you had a kind heart. But you have a wise one, too. Rare combination. Kind-hearted wisdom. I don't feel very wise right now. Wise people probably don't accept mysterious job offers from strangers. Wise people recognize opportunity when it presents itself, even in unexpected packages. He pauses, and when he speaks again, his voice carries a weight that makes her look at him. I meant what I said in the diner, Marin. This meeting was not an accident. I believe in fate, in the idea that certain souls are meant to cross paths, and I believe you were meant to be in that diner tonight, meant to show kindness to my son, meant to catch my attention. Why? The question comes out barely above a whisper, but Alexander just shakes his head, that slight smile still playing at his lips. Give it time. Some answers unfold slowly in their proper season. For now, just know that you're safe, that you're wanted, and that you've caught the attention of someone who protects what's his with absolute ruthlessness. The last part should sound threatening. Instead, it sends a shiver through Marin that has nothing to do with fear, and everything to do with a yearning she doesn't fully understand. To be protected, to be claimed, to matter to someone with that kind of intensity. The car winds through streets Marin recognizes, then turns onto roads she doesn't, heading out of town and into the forested hills that surround it. The snow makes everything unfamiliar, turning the landscape into something from a fairy tale. Dark trees heavy with white, the road a ribbon of barely disturbed powder, no other cars in sight. Finally, Alexei turns onto a private drive, marked only by a discreet sign. Morozov. The drive winds through the trees for what must be a mile before the house comes into view. Except house is inadequate to describe what looms before them. It's a mansion, all stone and dark wood and soaring windows that glow with warm light against the snow. Architectural elements that speak of old European wealth, turrets and arched doorways, and what might even be actual battlements along the roof. The kind of place that shouldn't exist in rural Montana, that belongs to Russian aristocracy or Gothic novels. You live here, Marin says faintly. One of several properties. This one I keep for when business brings me to the region. It's private, secure, and comfortable. You'll have your own suite of rooms, of course. Nikolai's chambers adjoin the master wing, so you'll be close enough to attend him, but with privacy when you need it. The car pulls up to the main entrance, where the doors open as if someone was watching for their arrival. A woman emerges, older, severe-looking, dressed in black that makes her pale skin look almost luminous. Her eyes, when they land on Marin, are a strange amber color, almost like Alexei's. Madame Karina, Alexander says as they exit the car. This is Miss Marin Ashford. She'll be serving as Nikolai's governess. Please have the blue suite prepared for her, and arrange appropriate clothing. Use the measurements from Elena, I think. Similar build. Madame Karina's expression doesn't change, but something flickers in those amber eyes. Of course, Master Alexander. Welcome home, young master. This last is directed at Nikolai, who's woken enough to walk on his own, though he stays close to his father's side. Thank you, Madame Karina, the boy says, and there's a formality between them that speaks of respect rather than affection. Inside, the house is even more impressive. All high ceilings and rich fabrics, antique furniture that probably costs more than Marin made in a year at the diner, artwork on the walls that looks museum quality. It's beautiful and intimidating and utterly foreign to anything she's ever known. Nikolai, go with Madame Karina, Alexander instructs. Bath and bed. I'll come say goodnight shortly. For a moment, the boy looks like he might protest, but then his strange pale eyes shift to Marin, and he nods. You'll be here tomorrow? He asks her. You won't leave? I'll be here, Marin promises, and feels the weight of that promise in her chest. This child needs her, she realizes. Needs her in a way that goes beyond hunger and one kind meal. Needs her steadiness, her warmth, her humanity. After Nikolai and Madame Karina disappear down one of the hallways, Alexander turns to Marin with an expression that's difficult to read. Let me show you to your rooms. You must be exhausted. He leads her through the house, pointing out relevant locations, the kitchen, the library, the various living spaces, before climbing a grand staircase to the second floor. The blue suite turns out to be a collection of rooms larger than her entire apartment was. A bedroom with a 4-poster bed, a sitting area with a fireplace, a bathroom that makes her want to weep with its massive tub and heated floors. Your belongings will arrive tomorrow, Alexander says, standing in the doorway. "But we've stocked the wardrobe with basics that should fit. If you need anything at all, there's a bell pull by the bed. Someone will come." Maren turns to face him, suddenly aware that they're alone, that he's standing between her and the door, that she's just moved into a strange house with a man she doesn't know. The fear she should have felt hours ago finally catches up, making her pulse quicken. Alexander notices immediately, his expression shifting to something softer. "You're safe here, Maren. I swear it on my son's life. No harm will come to you under this roof." "Why are you doing this?" The question bursts out of her. "Why me? Really?" He's quiet for a long moment, studying her with those dark, bottomless eyes. Then he steps fully into the room, closing the distance between them with that predatory grace. He's so tall she has to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. So close she can feel the cold that radiates from him, like he's carved from winter itself. "Because you have something rare," he says quietly. "Something precious. Genuine goodness, unmotivated by reward or recognition. You gave my son everything you had to give, expected nothing in return, and did it with grace despite your own suffering. In my world, such things are extraordinary, worth protecting, worth claiming." The way he says claiming makes heat pool low in Maren's belly, a response that's entirely inappropriate given the circumstances, but impossible to deny. "I'm not a thing to be claimed," she whispers, but there's no conviction in it. "No," Alexander agrees. "You're a woman. A beautiful, kind-hearted, remarkably brave woman. And if you'll allow it, I would very much like the opportunity to show you what your life could be. What you could have. What you deserve after everything you've sacrificed." His hand comes up, hesitates, then cups her cheek with surprising gentleness. His thumb brushes just below her eye, where she knows the dark circles of exhaustion are most prominent. "Sleep," he murmurs. "Rest. Tomorrow is soon enough for questions and contracts and the practicalities of your new life. Tonight, just let yourself be safe." Then, he's gone, closing the door quietly behind him, and Maren is alone in a room larger than any space she's ever inhabited, her heart racing and her mind spinning. She should run. She should call someone, except she has no one to call. She should at least lock the door, except she finds she doesn't want to. Instead, she moves through the suite in a daze, discovering fresh nightclothes laid out on the bed, toiletries in the bathroom, slippers by the fireplace where a fire has been lit at some point, without her noticing. Everything arranged for her comfort, her needs anticipated and met before she even knew she had them. In the bathroom, she catches sight of herself in the mirror and barely recognizes the woman looking back. There's color in her cheeks for the first time in months, a brightness in her eyes that's part fear, part excitement, part something she doesn't dare name. The bath is heaven, hot water and oils that smell like lavender and vanilla, the kind of luxury she's only ever dreamed about. She soaks until her muscles unwind, until the bone-deep exhaustion starts to ease, until she can think about what's happened without her thoughts spiraling into panic. She's here. She's safe. She has a job, a place to live, the promise of security. And yes, there are mysteries. The strange coldness of Alexander and Nikolai's touch, the way Alexander's eyes sometimes flash red, the odd dynamics of his household. But for now, those can wait. Tomorrow, she'll ask questions. Tomorrow, she'll demand answers. Tonight, she'll sleep in a bed softer than clouds, in a room warmed by firelight, in a house where someone has promised she's safe. And when she finally crawls under the covers and closes her eyes, it's Alexander's face she sees in that space between waking and sleep. Those dark eyes, that stern mouth, the unexpected tenderness in his expression when he looked at his son. She dreams of winter forests and red eyes glowing in the darkness, and a voice like dark velvet promising protection, safety, belonging. She dreams, and for the first time in months, her dreams are sweet. Morning comes with weak winter sunlight filtering through gauzy curtains and the smell of coffee. Maren wakes slowly, luxuriating in the warmth of the bed, before memory crashes back and she sits up abruptly. Real. It was all real. She's in Alexander Morozov's house. She's Nikolai's new governess. Her entire life has changed overnight. A soft knock at the door makes her grab for the blankets, pulling them up to her chest. Yes? Madame Karina enters, carrying a tray. She sets it on the table by the window. Coffee, fresh fruit, pastries that look like they came from some European bakery, and regards Morin with those unsettling amber eyes. Master Alexander asks that you join him in his study at 10 o'clock. He wishes to discuss the terms of your employment and answer any questions you may have. Young Master Nikolai is still sleeping. The events of yesterday exhausted him. Your belongings arrived early this morning and have been unpacked. Marin glances at the wardrobe, which she'd barely looked at the night before. Thank you. Where is the study? I'll have someone escort you. Breakfast is at your leisure. We don't stand on formality in this house, Miss Ashford. Eat when you're hungry, rest when you're tired. Your duties begin when Master Alexander says they begin, and not before. It's the longest speech Madame Karina has made, and her accent, also Russian but different from Alexander's, harder somehow, makes everything sound slightly ominous. After she leaves, Marin explores the wardrobe and finds her own clothes hanging there, alongside the new things Alexander mentioned. Seeing her few possessions, the worn jeans, the discount store sweaters, the single dress she wore to her mother's funeral, mixed in with silk blouses and cashmere, makes the disparity of her new situation almost painful. She chooses her own clothes, needing the comfort of familiarity, then eats the breakfast that's too beautiful to taste. The coffee, though. The coffee is incredible, rich and strong, and exactly what she needs to face whatever comes next. At precisely 10 o'clock, a young man with the same amber eyes as Alexei and Madame Karina appears at her door. Miss Ashford? I'm Dima. I'll take you to Master Alexander's study. He leads her through hallways she didn't see the night before, and in daylight, the house is even more impressive. They pass rooms filled with books, rooms with furniture covered in sheets, rooms with artwork that makes Marin wish she could stop and stare. The place is enormous, more castle than house, and she wonders how many people actually live here. The study is at the end of a long hallway, its door already open. Dima gestures her forward, then disappears with the silent efficiency everyone in this house seems to possess. Alexander stands by the window, looking out at the snow-covered grounds. He's dressed more casually than last night. Dark trousers and a charcoal sweater that emphasizes his broad shoulders and lean build. When he turns at her entrance, Marin's breath catches. In daylight, he's even more striking. His features have an aristocratic quality that speaks of generations of careful breeding, of bloodlines kept pure. But there's also something wild about him, something that sits beneath the civilized surface, like a wolf wearing human skin. Marin. Good morning. Did you sleep well? Better than I have in months, she admits. Your home it's incredible. It serves its purpose. He gestures to a chair before the massive desk that dominates the room. Please, sit. We have much to discuss. She settles into the leather chair, which is as comfortable as everything else in this house, while Alexander takes his own seat behind the desk. He slides a leather folder toward her. Your contract. I've taken the liberty of having my lawyers draw it up overnight. Read it carefully. You'll find the terms quite generous. Marin opens the folder and starts reading. The salary makes her gasp. It's more than she made in a year at the diner, and this is monthly. Room and board included, travel expenses covered, health insurance, even a retirement plan. This is too much, she says. It's appropriate for the position. You'll be responsible for my son's education, his emotional well-being, his socialization. You'll travel with us extensively. We rarely stay in one place for more than a few months. You'll be available essentially at all hours, though we'll establish clear boundaries to ensure you have adequate rest and personal time. The salary reflects those demands. Marin keeps reading. There are oddly specific clauses about discretion, about not discussing the household with outsiders, about accepting that the Morozov family has particular customs and requirements that may seem unusual. There's a separate section about travel, listing countries she's only dreamed of seeing. Russia, obviously, but also Romania, Hungary, various remote locations in Eastern Europe. Why all the secrecy clauses? She asks. What exactly am I agreeing not to discuss? Alexander leans back in his chair, steepling his fingers. My family is very old, very wealthy, and very private. We've cultivated that privacy for generations, and we guard it jealously. What you'll see in this household, the way we live, the people you'll meet, all of it must remain confidential. No social media posts, no chatty conversations with old friends about your fascinating new employers. Complete discretion. Because you're wealthy? Among other reasons. His dark eyes pin her. Maren, I told you last night that my world would seem strange to you. I meant that. There are aspects of my family, our history, our very nature that you'll need to accept without fully understanding, at least initially. Can you do that? Every instinct screams that she should demand answers now, should refuse to sign anything until she knows exactly what she's agreeing to. But there's also the memory of yesterday, of being hours away from homelessness, of having no options and no future. There's the weight of Nikolai's pale eyes looking at her with such hope. There's the strange, undeniable pull she feels toward Alexander himself. I can try, she says, but I'm not good at blind obedience. If something seems wrong, if something dangerous is happening, I'll speak up. Something that might be approval flickers across Alexander's face. Good. I don't want a silent doll, Maren. I want someone with sense, with spine, with the courage to question when questioning is warranted. Just choose your moments wisely, and trust that I have excellent reasons for the rules I establish. She nods slowly, then continues reading. The contract is for 1 year, renewable by mutual consent. Either party can terminate with 30 days' notice, though there are financial penalties if she leaves before the full year without cause. At the bottom, there's a line for her signature, and a space for Alexander's elaborate, old-fashioned signature is already inscribed. I'd like a day to think about it, Maren says, though she already knows what her answer will be. Of course, take all the time you need. But there's something in Alexander's voice that suggests he knows she won't need it, that the decision is already made. A commotion in the hallway saves her from having to respond. Young voices, and then Nikolai bursts through the study door with the energy of a child who's slept well and woken to find the world still safe. Father, Madame Karina says Miss Maren is really staying. Is it true? He skids to a stop when he sees her, and his whole face lights up with uncomplicated joy. You're here. I'm here, Maren confirms, unable to help smiling at his enthusiasm. Good morning, Nikolai. Did you sleep in the blue suite? Do you like it? Father says it has the best view of the gardens, though you can't see much now because of the snow. But in spring, there are roses everywhere, and... Nikolai. Alexander's voice is gentle but firm. Give Miss Maren space to breathe. She and I are conducting business. Sorry, Papa. But Nikolai doesn't look particularly sorry as he bounds over to Maren's chair. But you will stay, won't you? You'll teach me things and eat meals with us and come with us when we travel? There's such naked hope in his voice that Maren feels her eyes sting. How long has this child been shuffled between inadequate caretakers, between people who saw him as a job rather than a person? How long has he been waiting for someone to genuinely care? I'll stay, she says, making the decision in that moment. Whatever weirdness exists in this house, whatever secrets Alexander is keeping, none of it changes the fact that this child needs her. And maybe she needs him too. Needs to be needed, to have purpose, to matter to someone. I promise. Nikolai throws his arms around her neck in an impulsive hug that nearly knocks her out of the chair. His skin is cool against hers. That same strange cold she noticed yesterday, but his enthusiasm is pure warmth. Over the boy's shoulder, Maren meets Alexander's gaze. Something passes between them in that look. Understanding, agreement, the sense of a bargain being struck that goes beyond mere employment. Welcome to the family, Maren Ashford, Alexander says quietly, and the word family resonates in her chest like a bell, like a promise, like a claim. The next few weeks unfold in a strange, dreamlike pattern. Maren settles into her role as Nikolai's governess, discovering that the boy is whip-smart, curious about everything, but also haunted by shadows he's too young to articulate. He has nightmares sometimes, waking with screams about the bad men and the fire. When Maren asks Alexander about it, his expression goes cold and dangerous. Enemies of my family, is all he says. They're being dealt with. Nikolai is safe now. That's all that matters. But it clearly isn't all that matters to Nikolai, who clings to Marin with an intensity that breaks her heart. She reads to him, teaches him, plays in the snow with him until they're both breathless and laughing. She learns his quirks, how he refuses to eat garlic. It makes me sick, Miss Marin, really sick. How he's impossibly strong for his size, how his eyes glow slightly in dim light. She learns about the household, too. Everyone who works here has those strange amber eyes, that same predatory grace. They're unfailingly polite to her, but keep their distance, like they're waiting to see if she'll last. Madame Karina warms to her slightly after Marin successfully gets Nikolai to eat vegetables, something apparently no previous governess managed. And then there's Alexander himself. He's gone frequently, disappearing for days on what he vaguely describes as business. But when he's home, his presence fills the house like a living thing. He joins them for dinner most nights, watching Marin interact with his son with an intensity that makes her self-conscious. Sometimes she catches him staring at her with an expression she can't read. Hunger, maybe, or curiosity, or something darker and more complicated. One evening, about 3 weeks after her arrival, Marin puts Nikolai to bed and finds Alexander waiting in the hallway outside the boy's room. "Walk with me?" he asks, offering his arm. She takes it, hyper-aware of the cool press of his skin through his shirt, of the way her hand looks small and pale against his darker sleeve. He leads her through the house to a conservatory she hasn't explored yet, all glass walls and lush plants that shouldn't survive Montana's winter, but somehow thrive. "You've been good for him," Alexander says without preamble. "For Nikolai, I've never seen him so settled, so happy. You have a gift with children." "I just treat him like a person," Marin says, "like someone worth listening to." Simple, and yet so many fail at it. Alexander stops before a night-blooming jasmine, its white flowers luminous in the moonlight, filtering through the glass. "I wanted to thank you, and to apologize." "For what?" "For bringing you into this world without full honesty about what it entails. I told myself it was necessary, that you needed time to adjust before learning certain truths. But the reality is, I was selfish. I wanted you here, and I was willing to obscure the full picture to ensure you'd stay." Marin's pulse quickens. "What truths, Alexander?" He's quiet for a long moment, his profile stark in the moonlight. When he speaks, his voice is careful, measured. "My family is not entirely human, Marin. We are something older, something that exists in the spaces between your world and the darkness. We are why certain legends persist, why children fear the night, why crosses and garlic and running water carry power in folklore." The words should sound insane. Instead, they click pieces together that Marin's been seeing, but not acknowledging. The cold skin, the strange eyes, Nikolai's aversion to garlic, the way no one in the house ever seems to eat normal food, the fact that she's never seen Alexander in full daylight. "Vampire?" she whispers. "Yes." He turns to face her fully, and his eyes catch the moonlight with that red gleam she noticed that first night. "We prefer strigoi in my language, but vampire is accurate enough. I am over 500 years old, Marin. I was born in Russia, when it was still a collection of principalities, when Ivan the Terrible ruled with blood and terror. I've survived wars, revolutions, centuries of persecution, and I am king of my kind. Not metaphorically, but literally. The bloodlines answer to me. The covens acknowledge my sovereignty. He's giving her every reason to run, Marin realizes, laying his cards on the table, daring her to reject him, to flee, to prove that she's like everyone else who can't handle the truth of what he is. But instead of fear, she feels a strange sense of relief, because this explains everything. The secrecy, the wealth that spans centuries, the household full of people with amber eyes, vampires, all of them. The way Alexander moves like something not quite human. "Nikolai?" she asks. "Half human. His mother was mortal. The pregnancy nearly killed her, and the birth." Alexander's voice breaks slightly. "She died hours after he was born, hemorrhaging that we couldn't stop. Nikolai inherited enough of my nature to need blood occasionally, but not enough to be fully Strigoi. He's rare, precious, and so very vulnerable. The nightmares, the bad men, enemies who sought to use him to control me. They burned one of our safe houses, killed his previous governess. I got him out, but barely. We've been moving ever since, staying ahead of those who would harm him. Alexander steps closer, and Marin can feel the cold radiating from him, the predatory power barely leashed beneath his civilized surface. I brought you into this knowing you could be in danger. That was unfair. If you want to leave, I'll understand. I'll ensure you have enough money to start over somewhere safe, far from me and mine. And Nikolai? Will lose another person he's learned to trust. The pain in Alexander's voice is raw, real. But better that than you dying because of your association with us. Marin looks up at him, this ancient, powerful being who's somehow also a worried father, who's trying to do right by his son and by her. She thinks about the past 3 weeks, about Nikolai's laughter and Alexander's careful kindness and the way this strange household has started to feel like home. I'm not leaving, she says firmly. You should have told me sooner, yes. But I'm not some fragile thing that breaks at the first sign of strangeness. You and Nikolai need me. And honestly, I need you too. I need this, purpose, family, belonging. I'm not walking away from that just because you're a vampire. Something flares in Alexander's eyes. Relief, desire, possessiveness. You're remarkable. Do you know that? Most humans would be screaming by now. Most humans haven't had their lives fall apart and then been rescued by a vampire king who happens to be an excellent father and dangerously attractive. The words slip out before Marin can stop them, and heat floods her face. But Alexander smiles, really smiles, showing fangs that should be terrifying, but somehow aren't. Dangerously attractive? Shut up. You know you are. And you, Marin Ashford, are the most fascinating creature I've encountered in 5 centuries. He reaches out, cupping her face with both hands, his touch cool against her flushed skin. You see what I am and don't flinch. You love my son as if he were your own. You bring light into spaces that have known only darkness. Do you have any idea how rare that is? How precious? His thumbs stroke along her cheekbones, and Marin's breath catches. Alexander. I want you, he says simply. Not just as Nikolai's governess, not just as someone under my protection. I want you in ways I have no right to want, in ways I swore I'd never let myself feel again after losing Elena, but I can't help it. You've gotten under my skin, into my blood, and I need to know, am I alone in this? Marin should say yes, should establish boundaries, maintain professionalism, not complicate an already complicated situation. But she's so tired of denying herself, of being sensible and careful and alone. No, she whispers, you're not alone. The kiss, when it comes, is inevitable. Alexander's mouth on hers is cool and demanding, tasting of winter and dark wine and something unutterably exotic. He kisses like he does everything else, with complete focus, total intensity, like she's the only thing that matters in his entire long existence. Marin melts into him, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer despite the cold of his body. He makes a sound low in his throat, almost a growl, and deepens the kiss, one hand sliding into her hair while the other presses against the small of her back. When they finally break apart, both breathing hard, or at least Marin is, she's not sure Alexander actually needs to breathe. He rests his forehead against hers. This is unwise, he murmurs. You're human, fragile. I could hurt you without meaning to. You won't. So certain? You've had centuries to learn control, Alexander, and you've been nothing but gentle with me, with Nikolai. I trust you. He pulls back to look at her, and there's wonder in his expression. Foolish, trusting creature. What am I going to do with you? Love me? The words come out half question, half plea, and Marin holds her breath waiting for his response. Yes, Alexander says, and it sounds like a vow. Yes, I will love you. Am loving you already, though I've been fighting it. I'll love you as long as you'll let me, protect you with everything I am, give you everything you've been denied. You'll never want for anything again, Maren. Never be alone, never be afraid, never doubt your worth. This I swear to you. It's too much, too fast, too intense, but maybe that's how it works when you're a vampire king. 500 years of life means you don't waste time on uncertainty. I'm still human, Maren says. Still mortal. Eventually we'll discuss options. Ways to extend your life if you wish. Ways to keep you with us. His hand tightens in her hair, but that's for later. Tonight, just be here with me. Let me hold you. Let me pretend that time isn't the enemy it is. So she does. She lets him lead her to a bench hidden among the jasmine and pull her into his lap. She lets him hold her while the moon moves across the sky, while he tells her stories of centuries past in that beautiful, accented voice. She lets herself feel safe, cherished, wanted in a way she's never experienced. And when he finally walks her back to her suite, when he kisses her at the door with a tenderness that makes her ache, she knows she's lost completely. Given her heart to an immortal king and his half-human son, tied her fate to theirs with threads of affection and need and something that might be love. Sleep well, my Maren, Alexander murmurs against her lips. Dream of me. She does. All night, she dreams of him. The next morning brings unexpected guests. Maren is in the library with Nikolai, working on mathematics, when raised voices echo from the entrance hall. Alexander's voice, sharp with authority, and others responding in Russian too rapid for her to follow. Nikolai's face goes pale, his eyes wide. They came, he whispers. The council. Father said they might. What council? Maren asks, but before Nikolai can answer, Alexander appears in the library doorway. His expression is carefully neutral, but Maren can see the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands flex like he wants to reach for weapons. Maren, Nikolai, we have visitors. High-ranking members of the Vampire Council who oversee the Strigoi covens across the Americas. They've heard I've taken a human into my household and wish to verify that I'm not violating any of our laws. What laws? Maren asks, standing instinctively to put herself between Nikolai and the door. Laws about revealing our nature to humans. About keeping our existence secret. About not creating security risks. Alexander's jaw tightens. They're concerned you might expose us. Or that I might turn you without proper authorization. That's absurd. I would never. I know, but they need to see for themselves. He enters the library fully, and his hand finds hers, squeezing gently. You'll need to meet them. Answer their questions. I'll be with you the entire time. But Maren, they will try to intimidate you. It's what they do. Stay calm, tell the truth, and remember that I won't let them harm you. The throne room, because that's what it is, despite being called a formal receiving room, is at the heart of the house. Maren has never been inside, but as Alexander leads her there, she understands why. It's designed to intimidate, with soaring ceilings and dark wood paneling and an actual throne at one end, carved from black wood and upholstered in deep red velvet. 4 figures wait there, arranged in a semicircle that forces Maren to face them all at once. 3 men and 1 woman, all dressed in expensive clothes that somehow look anachronistic, like they're wearing costumes from different centuries. All of them beautiful in that unsettling way vampires are, with eyes that glow various shades of amber and red and gold. Lord Alexander, the woman says, and her voice is cool, assessing. We received reports of a human in your household, a mortal governess for your half-breed son. The casual cruelty of calling Nikolai a half-breed makes Maren's hands curl into fists, but Alexander's grip on her arm tightens warningly. This is Miss Maren Ashford, he says, and there's steel beneath his courteous tone. Nikolai's governess, yes, and under my protection. Any who harm her answer to me personally. Bold to claim a human so publicly. This from one of the men, tall and skeletal thin, with eyes like burning coals. Especially given your position. The king of the bloodlines should be setting an example, not breaking our oldest laws about secrecy. I've broken no laws. Miss Ashford knows what we are because I chose to tell her, which is well within my rights for anyone in my household. She's signed contracts binding her to secrecy, and she's proven herself trustworthy beyond any doubt. Has she? The woman steps forward and Marin fights not to retreat. This close, she can see the predator beneath the beautiful surface, the thing that views humans as prey. Let's test that, shall we? Tell me, Miss Ashford, why should we allow you to live with this knowledge? What's to stop you from running to the media, or writing a tell-all book, or simply telling the wrong person after too much wine? Nothing but my word, Marin says, lifting her chin. And the fact that I love Nikolai, like he's my own child. I would never do anything to endanger him or his father. Love. The woman laughs, and it's a brittle sound. How mortal. Love fades, Miss Ashford. Fear, however, fear lasts. Lady Svetlana, Alexander's voice cuts like a blade. You will not threaten what is mine. Marin is under my protection, as I've stated. Challenge that, and you challenge my authority as king. The room goes very still. Marin can feel the weight of power in the air, the silent battle of wills happening above her head. These are ancient beings, she realizes, playing games of dominance and submission that predate human civilization. Finally, Lady Svetlana steps back with a mocking bow. Of course, Lord Alexander. We wouldn't dream of challenging your authority. We simply wish to ensure the security of our kind. Surely you understand. I understand that you're using concern for security as an excuse to test my resolve. Consider it tested, and found absolute. Alexander pulls Marin closer to his side, and the possessive gesture is clearly deliberate. Miss Ashford stays. She has my trust, and that should be sufficient for the council. And if we require more? Asks another of the men, this one with a soft voice that somehow manages to be more threatening than outright aggression. Then we'll have a problem that ends with fewer council members. Alexander's smile shows fangs. Choose wisely which hill you wish to die on, Counselor Dmitri. I've been patient with the council's overreach, but my patience has limits. The threat hangs in the air like smoke. Marin realizes she's witnessing something significant. A power struggle, a line being drawn. Alexander is protecting her, yes, but he's also using her as a symbol, a statement about his autonomy and authority. Lady Svetlana studies them for a long moment, her expression calculating. Then she laughs, and this time it sounds more genuine, if no less dangerous. Very well, the king has spoken. Miss Ashford may remain, under the standard bindings, of course. What bindings? Marin asks, her voice steadier than she feels. A blood oath, Svetlana explains. You'll swear on your life to keep our secrets. Break the oath, and you die. Instantly. Painfully. It's magically enforced, so there's no possibility of deception. Horror must show on Marin's face because Alexander turns to her, his expression softening. You don't have to do this. I can send you away, somewhere safe, with enough money to live comfortably. You can walk away from all of this. But walking away means losing Nikolai. Losing Alexander. Losing the first place that's felt like home since her mother died. I'll take the oath, Marin says. Tell me what I need to do. The ritual is simple, but terrifying. Lady Svetlana produces a ceremonial knife, silver etched with symbols that hurt to look at, and makes a small cut on Marin's palm. The pain is sharp, immediate, but nothing compared to what comes next. Svetlana speaks in a language Marin doesn't recognize, something old and harsh and filled with power. The blood on Marin's palm begins to burn, not with heat, but with a cold that seeps into her bones, into her very soul. She gasps, would have pulled away if Alexander wasn't there, holding her steady, murmuring reassurances. I bind you to silence, Svetlana intones, switching to English. I bind you to secrecy. Speak of our nature to any not already aware, and your heart will stop. Betray our confidence through word or deed or medium, and your blood will turn to poison in your veins. This is the price of knowledge. This is the cost of our trust. Do you accept? I accept, Marin gasps, and the burning intensifies for one terrible moment before vanishing completely. She sways, would have fallen if Alexander wasn't there to catch her. He lifts her easily, cradling her against his chest, and his eyes when he looks at the council members are full of barely leashed violence. "You have what you came for. Now leave my house." They go, but Lady Svetlana pauses at the door to look back. "She's pretty, your mortal, and she has spirit. I can see why you've claimed her. But Lord Alexander, be careful. Humans break so easily, and you have enemies who would use any weakness against you." Then they're gone, and Alexander is carrying Marin through the halls, his face a mask of controlled fury. He takes her to his own chambers. She recognizes the space from having passed it before, though she's never been inside. It's all dark wood and deep colors, masculine and spare, but somehow comforting. He lays her on his bed, and the intimacy of that gesture, being in his space, on his furniture, makes her dizzy. "I'm sorry," he says, and there's genuine anguish in his voice. "I should have warned you about the possibility of the blood oath. Should have prepared you." "I'm okay." Marin's voice is weak, but she means it. The burning is gone, replaced by a strange sense of weightiness, like she's carrying something heavy in her chest. "It's done. They can't use me against you now." "No, but they'll watch you. Watch us. They don't like that I've claimed a human so openly, that I'm willing to challenge their authority over something they see as trivial." Alexander sits on the edge of the bed, taking her hand gently, careful of the cut on her palm that's already healing faster than it should. "You matter to them now, Marin. That makes you both safer and more vulnerable." "I don't care." And she doesn't. Not really. The oath, the danger, the political complications, none of it matters as much as the look in Alexander's eyes, the way he touches her like she's something infinitely precious. "I told you, I'm not leaving. Not you, not Nikolai. Whatever comes, we'll face it together." "Together," Alexander repeats, and then he's kissing her again, desperate and claiming and grateful all at once. His mouth moves from her lips to her jaw to her throat, and when he pauses there, she feels the press of fangs against her pulse. "May I?" He breathes against her skin. "Just a taste. I need to know you're real, that you're mine." The bite, when it comes, is nothing like Marin expected. There's a sharp sting, and then pleasure. Dark, overwhelming pleasure that floods through her like wine, like heat, like falling. She gasps, arching into him, her hands fisting in his hair. Alexander drinks, but carefully, taking only sips. When he pulls back, his eyes are blazing red, his fangs stained with her blood. He looks wild, dangerous, barely controlled. "Mine," he growls. "Mine to protect. Mine to claim. Mine to love. Say it, Marin. Say you're mine." "Yours," she whispers, "because it's true, has been true since that first night in the diner. I'm yours, Alexander. Completely." He kisses her again, and she can taste her own blood on his tongue, coppery and strange, and somehow right. His hands map her body over her clothes, touching but not taking, claiming but not consuming. "Not yet," he murmurs against her mouth. "Not when you're weak from the oath, from the blood loss. When I take you properly, you'll be strong enough to meet me as an equal, to take everything I want to give you." It's simultaneously the most frustrating and most respectful thing anyone's ever said to her. Marin laughs, breathless and dizzy and absurdly happy despite everything. "You're an old-fashioned gentleman, aren't you? 500 years old and still worried about propriety. I'm a king who knows the value of anticipation. And you, my darling Marin, are worth waiting for." He stays with her while she rests, holding her in the massive bed, telling her stories about Nikolai's childhood, about Elena, about the long, complicated history of his kind. She learns that vampires aren't the soulless monsters of legend. They feel deeply, love fiercely, build communities and families. They're simply different, operating on timescales and moral frameworks that don't quite match human ones. And she learns that Alexander is exactly what he claimed, a king, but one who rules through loyalty and respect rather than fear. His people follow him because he protects them, because he's fair, because in 5 centuries he's never betrayed a trust or abandoned someone under his care. "I want that," Marin says drowsily. "That loyalty. That certainty. I want to build something that lasts. With me? Alexander asks, hope naked in his voice. With you. With Nikolai. With this strange, impossible family. He kisses her forehead, gentle and reverent. Then it's yours. All of it. For as long as you want it. Sleep claims her, safe and warm in a vampire king's arms, dreaming of forever. The weeks that follow settle into a new normal. Marin continues teaching Nikolai, watching him flourish under her attention. The boy grows more confident, more open, though he still has nightmares sometimes about the enemies who hurt his previous governess. But now, when he wakes screaming, both Marin and Alexander come to comfort him. They've become a unit, the three of them, a family cobbled together from loss and need and genuine affection. Marin learns more about vampire society, meeting some of Alexander's allies and supporters. Most are welcoming once they see how devoted she is to Nikolai, though a few remain suspicious of the human in their midst. She learns to navigate the complex hierarchies, the ancient grudges, the political maneuvering that comes with being partnered to a king. Because that's what she is now. Alexander makes it official with a ceremony that's part engagement, part claiming, part magical binding. In front of his inner circle, he declares her his consort, his chosen mate, under his protection and bearing his mark. The mark comes in the form of a bite, not the gentle taste he took before, but a deeper claiming that leaves his venom in her system, marking her as his to any vampire who might encounter her. It burns at first, then settles into a warm thrum in her veins, a constant awareness of Alexander, of his location and emotions. I can feel you, she marvels afterward, pressing her hand to her chest. It's like you're inside me somehow. As you're inside me, Alexander confirms. The bond works both ways. I'll always know if you're in danger, if you need me, and you'll always be able to find your way home. Home. The word resonates in ways Marin never expected. This house, this family, this life, it's become home more than anywhere she's ever lived. But peace, she's learning, is fragile when you're involved with vampire politics. The attack comes on a Tuesday evening in early spring. Marin is reading to Nikolai in his room when the first explosion rocks the house. The boy's eyes go wide with remembered terror. They're here, he whispers. The bad men. Alexander appears in the doorway before Marin can respond, moving with inhuman speed. His face is set in lines of cold fury, and his eyes burn red. The east wing is breached. Madame Karina is evacuating the staff. Alexei and Konstantin are holding the main entrance, but we're outnumbered. He moves to Nikolai, gripping the boy's shoulders. Listen to me very carefully. You and Marin are going to the safe room. You remember where it is? Nikolai nods, tears streaming down his face. Good boy. Go now. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone but me. Do you understand? No one but me. Papa, don't leave us, please. I must. These enemies came for you once before, and I won't let them succeed. But I need to know you're safe so I can fight without distraction. Go with Marin. Protect each other. I'll come for you when it's over. He kisses Nikolai's forehead, then turns to Marin. The kiss he gives her is desperate, claiming, final, like he's not certain he'll get another chance. Keep him safe. Alexander breathes against her mouth. Whatever happens, keep my son safe. I will. I swear it. Then he's gone, disappearing into the chaos with the fluid grace of a predator going to war. The safe room is hidden behind a bookcase in the library, accessible only through a series of hidden latches. Marin gets Nikolai inside, a small, reinforced space stocked with supplies, and locks the heavy door behind them. For a long time they huddle together in the darkness, listening to the sounds of fighting above. Screams, crashes, the distinctive sound of something burning. Nikolai trembles against her, and Marin holds him tight, whispering reassurances she's not sure she believes. Father is strong, Nikolai says, like a mantra. Father is the king. He's never lost a fight. That's right. He'll win. He'll come for us. But hours pass, and the sounds of battle fade, and still Alexander doesn't come. Marin's watch reads 3 a.m. when she hears it, Footsteps approaching the library. Heavy, multiple sets. Voices speaking in Russian, harsh and victorious. Said they'd be here somewhere. Find them. The boy is worth a fortune. And the human. The council wants her dead. Prove the king can't protect his pets. Terror floods through Marin. The attackers are in the library. They're looking for the safe room. Nikolai looks up at her with those pale, ancient eyes, and she sees him make a decision. Before she can stop him, he's moving to the door, reaching for the lock. No, Marin hisses, grabbing his arm. Your father said, they'll find us anyway. The room isn't that hidden. But maybe I can stop them. I'm stronger than I look. Father says I have power if I can just learn to use it. You're 9 years old. I'm the son of a vampire king, and I won't let them hurt you. The lock clicks open before Marin can stop him, and Nikolai steps out into the library with a courage that breaks her heart. The attackers, 3 of them, all vampires with the lean, hungry look of mercenaries, laugh when they see him. Look at this. The little half-breed trying to be brave. Your father's dead, boy, burned with the rest of his loyal dogs. You're an orphan again. Might as well come quietly. My father's not dead. Nikolai's voice is steady, certain. I can feel him through the bloodline. He's hurt, but alive. And he's coming. Not fast enough to save you. The vampire lunges, and Nikolai moves, faster than Marin's ever seen him move, with a speed and grace that's purely his father's gift. He dodges the grab, and his hand shoots out, touching the vampire's arm. What happens next makes Marin's blood run cold. The vampire screams, a sound of pure agony, as the flesh under Nikolai's touch begins to burn. Not with fire, but with light. White, searing light that spreads from the point of contact like a contagion. He's a daywalker, one of the other vampires gasps. The rumors were true. He carries dawn in his blood. They retreat, and Nikolai stands between them and Marin, his small body rigid with determination, and his eyes blazing with that strange silver-blue light. You can't have her, he says, and you can't have me. We're under my father's protection, and he never loses. As if summoned by those words, the library door explodes inward. Alexander stands in the wreckage, covered in blood and ash, and radiating such fury that even Marin, who loves him, feels a primal urge to flee. His eyes find his son first, scanning for injuries. Then Marin, and the relief that crosses his face is profound. But when he turns that gaze on the remaining attackers, it's death incarnate that looks out of those red eyes. You came into my house, he says, his voice soft and infinitely dangerous. Attacked my people, threatened my child, terrorized my mate. Do you have any idea what I'm going to do to you? The vampires run. It doesn't matter. Alexander moves like liquid shadow, like nightmare given form, and he catches them easily. What he does to them is swift and brutal and final. The justice of a king protecting his territory, executed without mercy or hesitation. When it's over, when the library is silent except for the sound of Nikolai's ragged breathing, Alexander comes to them. He drops to his knees before his son, pulling the boy into a fierce embrace. You protected her, he says, and his voice cracks. You were so brave, so strong. I'm so proud of you, Nikolai. I felt the light, Papa, like Mama used to talk about. I felt it in my blood, and I knew I could use it against them. Your mother's gift. She passed it to you, the ability to channel daylight, to walk in the sun without burning. You're unique, my son, the first of your kind, and you're going to be magnificent. Alexander pulls Marin into the embrace too, and they huddle together in the destroyed library, 3 people who've become a family through choice and love and shared danger. Is it over? Marin asks. Are they all dead or fled? We lost 3 of our people, and the East Wing will need rebuilding. But we survived. You survived. That's all that matters. Alexander pulls back to look at her, his hand cupping her face. You kept your promise. You kept him safe. He kept me safe, too. Your son is remarkable, Alexander. He has a remarkable teacher. Alexander stands, pulling them both up with him. Come, we need to leave this place. It's compromised now. I have another property, more secure. We'll go there while I deal with the consequences of this attack. Consequences? His smile is cold, kingly, terrifying. Someone ordered this strike. Someone on the council, most likely, testing my defenses and trying to prove I'm weak. They've made a grave mistake. I'm going to find out who, and I'm going to make an example that ensures no one ever threatens my family again. The move happens with startling efficiency. By dawn, they're in a different house, this one built like a fortress, all reinforced walls and hidden passages and security that would make a president envious. By noon, Alexander has called a gathering of the Vampire Council, demanding answers and accountability. Marin watches it all unfold over the next week. The investigation, the interrogations, the careful unraveling of a conspiracy that goes higher than anyone suspected. Lady Svetlana was behind it, it turns out, believing that Alexander's attachment to a human made him weak and unfit to rule. She was wrong. The council gathers to witness Alexander's judgment, not just the American Council, but representatives from covens worldwide. Marin is there too, standing at his side in a position of honor, wearing a dress that costs more than her old car and bearing his mark openly on her throat. "Lady Svetlana," Alexander says, his voice carrying through the massive hall, "you stand accused of ordering an attack on the king's household, of attempting to murder the king's mate and heir, of conspiracy, treason, and gross violation of the ancient laws. How do you answer?" Svetlana, bound in silver chains that smoke against her skin, lifts her chin defiantly. "I answer that you're unfit to rule, that you've let a mortal woman make you weak, distract you from your duties, that your half-breed son is an abomination that should never have been allowed to live. I did what was necessary for the good of our kind." "I see." Alexander steps down from his throne, and the assembled vampires shrink back instinctively. "Let me tell you what I see, Svetlana. I see a woman so afraid of change that she'd destroy anything that challenges her narrow worldview. I see someone who mistakes brutality for strength, isolation for safety. And I see someone who's forgotten the most important rule of our kind. We survive through adaptation, not stagnation." He stops before her, and even bound and defeated, Svetlana doesn't look away. "My mate is not a weakness. She's a strength I never knew I needed. She brings light into our darkness, humanity into our cold, love into spaces we'd forgotten could feel it. My son is not an abomination. He's the future, a bridge between two worlds, carrying powers we're only beginning to understand. And I am not weak for loving them. I'm stronger than I've ever been, because now I have something worth protecting, beyond abstract concepts of honor and duty." He turns to address the assembled council. "I've ruled for 300 years. In that time, I've led our kind through persecution, through wars, through the technological revolutions that forced us to adapt or die. I've been fair, been just, been strong. But I've also been cold, detached, more symbol than person. That changes now. From this day forward, I rule not just as king, but as father, as mate, as someone with skin in the game of living, and anyone who thinks that makes me weak is welcome to challenge me for the throne." Silence. No one moves. No one speaks. "I thought not." Alexander turns back to Svetlana. "Your life is forfeit. But I'm not unmerciful. I'll make it quick, and I'll ensure your coven is cared for despite your failings. Let your death serve as a reminder. I protect what's mine with absolute finality. There will be no further warnings. What happens next is swift and final." Marin looks away, unable to watch, but she hears it. The sound of ancient justice, of a king executing a traitor. When she looks back, Svetlana is dust on the wind, and Alexander stands alone before the council, blood on his hands and steel in his eyes. "Does anyone else question my fitness to rule?" he asks. The assembled vampires bow as one, acknowledgement and submission, and renewed loyalty. It's over. 3 months later, Marin stands in the garden of their Montana property, watching Nikolai play in the spring sunshine. The boy glows slightly in the daylight, his mother's gift allowing him to walk freely in a world his father can only visit at night. Alexander comes up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist, careful to stay in the shadow of the covered porch. "He's happy," he observes. "More settled than I've ever seen him. He has stability, a home, people who love him." Marin leans back against Alexander's chest. "We all do." "Regrets? About any of this?" She considers the question seriously. Her old life seems like a dream now. The diner, the tiny apartment, the constant worry about money. She doesn't miss it, but she does sometimes wonder at the path that brought her here. "No regrets," she says finally. "Though I still can't quite believe that I'm in a relationship with a 500-year-old vampire king. If you'd told me that a year ago, I'd have thought you were insane. And yet, here you are." His lips brush the mark on her throat, and pleasure shivers through her. "Mine in every way that matters. My mate, my consort, my love." "Yours," she agrees, then gathering her courage. "Alexander, I want to talk about the future, about my mortality." She feels him tense behind her. "Marin, I'm not asking to be turned. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I need to know what options exist. Because I don't want to leave you. I don't want to leave Nikolai. And if there are ways to extend my life, ways to give us more time together, I want to explore them." "There are ways," Alexander says carefully. "Partial conversions that grant extended life without full vampirism. Blood exchanges that slow aging. Magic that can add decades or even centuries. But they all come with costs. Risks. I won't pressure you into any decision. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to give me information so I can make an informed choice. Because I'm choosing this, Alexander. I'm choosing you, choosing this family, choosing whatever future we can build together." He turns her in his arms, and his eyes are bright with emotion. "I love you. I don't say it enough, don't show it well enough sometimes. But Marin, you are the best thing to happen to me in centuries. You brought light back into my life when I'd forgotten what it felt like. You love my son as your own. You stood before the council and the most powerful vampires in the world and didn't flinch. You're extraordinary. I'm really not. I'm just a woman who got lucky enough to meet the right man, vampire king, whatever, at the right time." "Luck," Alexander smiles. "I prefer to think of it as fate. Fate that I gave your son a burger? Fate that brought you to that diner on that night? Fate that made you kind enough to feed a hungry child? Fate that let me see what you truly are, brave and good and exactly what I needed even though I didn't know it." He kisses her softly. "I believe in fate, Marin. I believe in the idea that some souls are meant to find each other across any distance, any obstacle, and I believe yours and mine were always meant to meet. It's romantic and slightly absurd and absolutely sincere." Marin finds herself tearing up, overwhelmed by the sheer intensity of being loved by someone like Alexander. "I believe it too," she whispers. "And I'm grateful every day that I was in that diner, that Nikolai was hungry, that you saw something in me worth protecting, worth far more than protection, worth everything." They stand together in the fading light, vampire king and human woman, watching a half-vampire child play in the sunshine. It's not the life Marin imagined for herself. It's better, stranger, more dangerous, more wonderful than anything she could have dreamed. And when Nikolai calls out, "Marin, Papa, come see what I found," they go to him together, a family bound by choice and love and blood. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. In the months that follow, their life settles into a rhythm that feels almost normal, if anything about living with vampires can be called normal. Marin continues Nikolai's education, now supplemented by specialized tutors who teach him vampire history, blood magic, and the politics he'll need to navigate as Alexander's heir. She learns alongside him sometimes, fascinated by the layers of history and culture she never knew existed. Alexander conducts his business with her at his side now, making her presence and position clear to anyone who might question it. Marin attends council meetings, learns the names and allegiances of the various coven leaders, becomes skilled at the diplomatic dance required to navigate vampire society. She learns to defend herself too. Alexei, the driver who's revealed himself to be Alexander's head of security, trains her in weapons and basic self-defense. "You're human," he says bluntly, "slower, weaker, more fragile, but you can be smart, which counts for more than most realize." The partial conversion happens in late summer, after months of research and discussion. It's not full vampirism. Maren keeps her heartbeat, her warmth, her ability to walk in daylight. But she gains extended life, enhanced healing, and a deeper connection to Alexander through their blood bond. The transformation is painful. 3 days of fever and hallucinations as her body rewrites itself on a cellular level. Alexander stays with her the entire time, holding her through the worst of it, offering his blood when she needs strength. When she emerges on the other side, everything is sharper, colors more vivid, sounds more clear. Her awareness of Alexander intensified to the point where she can feel his emotions like they're her own. "How long?" she asks when she's recovered enough to speak. "How much time did we buy?" "Centuries, if fortune favors us. You'll age, but slowly. Perhaps a year for every decade that passes. It's not immortality, but it's close enough." Alexander traces her face with gentle fingers. "Enough time to raise Nikolai. Enough time to build something lasting. Enough time for me to love you properly. She has centuries now." The thought is dizzying, terrifying, exhilarating. "Then we'd better get started," Maren says, pulling him down for a kiss. 1 year after that first night in the diner, Alexander throws a celebration, ostensibly for Nikolai's 10th birthday, but really to publicly acknowledge Maren as his permanent consort. The ceremony is grand, attended by vampire royalty from around the world, held in the massive ballroom of their Montana estate. Maren wears a dress that makes her feel like a princess from a gothic fairy tale, deep crimson silk that pools around her feet, with intricate black lace at the bodice. Alexander has gifted her jewelry that belonged to his mother, rubies and diamonds that catch the candlelight and sparkle like captured stars. "You're breathtaking," he murmurs as they prepare to make their entrance. "Every inch the vampire queen, even if you refuse the actual title." "I'm a governess who got lucky," Maren protests, but she's smiling. "You're the maid of a king, the mother of a prince, and the woman who changed everything. Own it, my darling. Let them see what I see. Someone magnificent." The celebration is everything Maren never knew she wanted. Music and dancing and food, though only she and Nikolai eat anything substantial. Vampires from covens she's only heard about approach to pay their respects, to acknowledge her position, to size up the human who caught a king's attention. Midway through the evening, Alexander calls for silence. He takes Maren's hand and leads her to a raised platform where everyone can see. "My kin," he says, his voice carrying easily through the crowd. "You know why we're gathered. To celebrate my son's continued health and growth, to acknowledge the woman at my side, to mark a year of peace and prosperity for our kind. But there's something else I wish to say publicly, before all of you as witnesses." He turns to Maren, and his expression is unguarded in a way she's rarely seen. Vulnerable, hopeful, deeply in love. "Maren Ashford, you came into my life when I least expected it, when I'd convinced myself that love was something I'd experienced once and lost forever. You proved me wrong in every possible way. You brought warmth back into my cold existence. You gave my son the mother he desperately needed. You stood against my enemies without flinching. You adapted to a world most humans would flee from with grace and courage. You are, quite simply, the finest thing I've ever had the privilege to claim as mine." He drops to one knee, and the crowd gasps. A vampire king kneeling to a human. It's unprecedented, scandalous, beautiful. "I can't give you a normal life. Can't give you safety from the dangers of my world. Can't promise that tomorrow will be easy, or peaceful, or simple. But I can promise that I will love you with everything I am for as long as I exist. That I will protect you with my last breath. That I will honor you, cherish you, and strive to be worthy of the gift you've given me by choosing to stay." He produces a ring, black diamond set in platinum, ancient and powerful. "Marry me, Maren. Be my wife in human terms, as you're already my mate in vampire ones. Let me stand before both our worlds and declare that you are mine, and I am yours, for now and forever." Marin's crying, tears streaming down her face, but she's also laughing, because this is ridiculous and perfect, and so very them. Yes, she says, her voice breaking. Yes, of course, yes. The ring slides onto her finger, cold and heavy, and absolutely right. Alexander stands, pulling her into a kiss that's tender and claiming and witnessed by hundreds of vampires who'll carry this story across the world. When they break apart, Nikolai is there, crashing into both of them with enough force to almost knock Marin over. Does this mean you're my mother now? For real? He asks, looking between them with shining eyes. I've been your mother in all the ways that matter for a while now, Marin says, smoothing his dark hair. But yes, sweetheart. Officially, legally, permanently. I'm your mother. The boy's smile could light the entire mansion. The rest of the evening passes in a blur of congratulations and music and dancing. Marin finds herself passed from partner to partner as various vampire lords request the honor of dancing with the king's intended. She's gracious and diplomatic and utterly exhausted by the time Alexander finally reclaims her. Come, he murmurs, leading her away from the crowd. Let me show you something. He takes her to the roof, where they can see stars scattered across the Montana sky like diamonds on velvet. The sounds of the party fade below them, leaving just the two of them in the cold night air. I wanted a moment alone with you, Alexander says, before the night ends and we return to reality. Wanted to make sure you understand what you've agreed to. I'm marrying a 500-year-old vampire king who rules over an entire supernatural society while raising his half-vampire son. I think I have a pretty good grasp of what I've signed up for. When you put it that way, it sounds rather overwhelming. It is overwhelming. It's also wonderful, terrifying, and perfect, and more than I ever imagined wanting. Marin leans against him, feeling the solid strength of him, the cool kiss of his skin through their clothes. A year ago, I was hours from being homeless. I had nothing and no one. I was so alone, Alexander. And now I have everything. A child who calls me mother. A man who loves me enough to kneel before his entire court. A purpose bigger than myself. How did I get this lucky? Luck had nothing to do with it. You earned this with your kindness, your courage, your capacity to love despite every reason not to. You saved my son with a simple act of compassion, and in doing so, you saved me too. His arms tighten around her. I was going through the motions of ruling, of existing, but I wasn't truly alive anymore. You changed that. You reminded me what it feels like to hope, to dream, to want something beyond the next crisis to manage. You gave me back my life, Marin. This ring, this celebration. It's not enough, but it's a start. They stand together under the stars, vampire and human turned something more, and Marin thinks about the strange path that brought her here. If she hadn't been working that night, if she hadn't noticed Nikolai's hunger, if she hadn't chosen kindness over self-preservation. So many small choices that added up to this moment. Thank you, she whispers. For what? For seeing me, for choosing me, for giving me a place to belong. Alexander turns her in his arms, and his dark eyes catch the starlight. Thank you for being someone worth seeing, worth choosing, worth building a life around. He kisses her softly. Come. Let's go back to our son, to our people. Let's celebrate what we've built together. And tomorrow, we'll start planning a wedding that'll make vampire history. Just keep it smaller than tonight, Marin pleads. I don't think I can handle another crowd that size. For you, my love, I'd marry in an empty room with only Nikolai as witness. The rest is just pageantry. You're what matters. They return to the celebration hand in hand, and when the gathered vampires see them, a cheer goes up. Nikolai runs to them, and Alexander lifts him easily, the three of them forming a unit that's visible to everyone present. A family, strange, unconventional, forged from the oddest circumstances, but absolutely, undeniably real. Later, much later, after the last guest has departed and Nikolai is asleep and the household has settled, Marin finds herself in Alexander's chambers. Their chambers now, she supposes, since she's been spending most nights here anyway. He's standing by the window, looking out at the grounds, still wearing his formal clothes. In profile, he could be carved from marble, perfect, remote, more artwork than man. But when he turns at her entrance, his expression softens into something achingly human. "I thought tonight would never end," he admits. "Don't misunderstand. I'm glad we celebrated. Glad everyone sees what you mean to me. But I've been waiting for hours to have you to myself." Maren crosses to him, feeling the weight of the engagement ring on her finger, the mark on her throat, the blood bond that ties them together. "Well, you have me now. What are you going to do with me?" "Everything," Alexander promises, and then he's kissing her, walking her backward toward the massive bed, stripping away the expensive dress with the efficiency of someone who's had centuries to perfect the art of undressing a woman. When he lays her on the bed, his eyes travel over her with naked appreciation. "Mine," he murmurs. "Every inch of you, mine." "Yours," Maren agrees, pulling him down to her. "Every inch." What follows is tender and intense, careful and overwhelming. Alexander makes love to her like he's worshipping at an altar, like she's something sacred and precious. His hands map every curve, his mouth follows, and when he finally enters her, the sensation of their blood bond intensifying makes Maren cry out. She can feel everything, his pleasure layered over hers, his love wrapping around her like a physical thing, his absolute certainty that she's exactly where she belongs. It's overwhelming, too much sensation, too much emotion, but also perfect. After tangled together in the aftermath, Alexander traces idle patterns on her skin. "I never thought I'd have this again," he says quietly. "After Elena died, I accepted that I'd had my chance at love, brief as it was. I resigned myself to ruling alone, to raising Nikolai without a partner. And then you appeared, this remarkable human woman who fed my son and looked at me without fear, and fit into our lives like you'd always been there. How am I supposed to express what that means to me?" "You just did," Maren says, pressing a kiss to his chest. "And you show me every day, in 100 small ways. I don't need grand declarations, Alexander. I just need you. This. Us. Us," he repeats like the word is sacred. I like the sound of that. They fall asleep wrapped around each other, Vampire King and his chosen mate, and Maren dreams of the future. Of Nikolai growing up strong and confident, of growing old slowly, while Alexander remains ageless at her side, of building a life that spans centuries instead of decades. She dreams of belonging, of love, of the family she found in the most unexpected place. She dreams, and in those dreams she's finally, completely home. Years pass. Nikolai grows into a remarkable young man, mastering both his vampire heritage and his human side, learning to walk in daylight while commanding the powers of his father's bloodline. Under Maren's guidance, he develops into someone kind and strong, someone who uses his unique position to bridge the gap between human and vampire worlds. Maren herself becomes something of a legend in vampire society, the human who captured a king's heart, who survived an assassination attempt, and the blood oath, who walks between two worlds with grace. She takes on more responsibilities, becoming an advisor to Alexander, a diplomat when human-vampire relations require a gentle touch. The wedding, when it finally happens, is everything they wanted. Intimate despite the political necessities. Held at twilight so Alexander can stand in the last rays of sunset with her. Nikolai stands as best man, proud and beaming. The vows they exchange are in both English and Russian, promising forever in 2 languages, binding themselves together before both law and blood magic. And in the decades that follow, they build something extraordinary. A household that's both family and court, a legacy that spans generations, a love that proves that sometimes the most impossible matches are the ones that last longest. 20 years after that first night in the diner, Maren stands in a garden she helped design, watching her son, because Nikolai is absolutely her son in every way that matters, graduate from university with honors. He's studying international law, planning to work toward better relations between vampire and human governments. Alexander materializes at her side, as he always does, and they watch together in comfortable silence. We did well, he says finally. We did, Marin agrees. Look at him, Alexander. He's going to change the world. He gets that from you, the belief that one person can make a difference, that kindness matters, that hope is worth holding on to. Alexander takes her hand, threading their fingers together. You changed my world, Marin. Everything good that's come since that night started with you choosing to help a hungry child. I just bought him a burger. You gave him everything, gave us everything. Never underestimate the power of compassion. He pulls her close, and despite the years, despite everything they've been through, her heart still races at his touch. I love you. Have I mentioned that today? Only 3 times. You're slipping. Then let me say it again. I love you, Marin Morozov. Today, tomorrow, for all the tomorrows we have left. You are the best decision I ever made, the greatest gift I ever received, and I am grateful every single day that you were working in that diner on that particular February night. Marin leans into him, watching their son celebrate with his friends, feeling the warmth of Alexander beside her, and thinks about the path that brought her here. From desperate waitress to vampire queen, from homeless and alone to surrounded by family and love. All because she chose kindness over caution. All because she fed a starving boy and caught the attention of his vampire king father. All because sometimes, in the darkest moments, grace arrives exactly when we need it most, wearing an unexpected face and offering salvation we didn't know to hope for. Thank you, she whispers, not entirely sure who she's thanking. Fate, maybe, or luck, or the universe that arranged for her to be in exactly the right place at exactly the right time. Alexander kisses her temple. No, my love. Thank you. For everything. For always. And in the gathering twilight, surrounded by the life they've built together, Marin knows with absolute certainty that she's exactly where she belongs. Home. Finally, completely, eternally home.